Good morning. Welcome to the Outer Circle Inner Stillness. My name is Reese Pasimio. I am a counselor here in Gresham, Oregon at New Pattern Counseling. And here we do addictions counseling. We work with the addiction interaction model, which looks at all manner of compulsive behaviors and substance use disorders and how they interact and appear in clusters. So, a common one for us, we have a focus on compulsive sexual behaviors. That interacts with definitely trauma. There's always that, almost always that in some form, and some substance use. So we might see, porn and marijuana. We might see porn and meth. We might see drinking alcohol and sexual behaviors, or any number of combinations thereof. And so we support a recovery process that is a very holistic and inclusive one. So in support of our work, so we do men's groups, and we've been doing an integrity repair group focused on learning how to live with integrity. And pardon that, I am getting calls. But living with integrity, living in truth, living congruently with one's values is a goal of sobriety. It's part of the sober way of life to be a consistent sort of person. And so we took a week one to talk about values, how we understand values, how we identify them. And week two, we got to talk a lot about deception. And the idea was to learn just what is the extent of the deception that we have practiced, different ways that we've lied and everything. So, so we came up with some exercises to find out, well, just how many ways are there to lie? And the goal, of course, is not to teach you all different ways to lie. You already know you who do these things, you already know them. The idea is to learn to speak truth, and to the more the more you're able to look at the scope of your own flaws and brokenness, the more you're able to actually address it. And so that's part of the reason for putting some language on these things. So I'm going to read through just some of the terms, concepts we came up with uh, for how here's some of the ways that we lie, and maybe you see yourself in there, and maybe you discover, oh wait, that's lying, that's not good. And maybe you realize, oh, I need to repent of that. And I say, yes, you do. So how can you lie? So there's a classic, so we'll use a fake scenario. You're headed home from work, you're supposed to stop at the store to pick up some eggs and bacon, but you drop by a party instead, and there's maybe some drugs, maybe some flirting, and some stuff, and maybe you don't come home with a bacon. So if that's our fake scenario for reference. So the lie of commission, classically, is just directly saying something that is not true. You come home, your partner asks, "Hey, where were you? Where's the bacon?" They're like, "I don't know." Or just they're like, "Well, did you get lost on the way home?" And you say, "Nope, I went to the store." uh, so it's just like blatantly saying something that's untrue, which we kind of recognize that, and some people are better at it than others. Um, so the lie of omission is leaving out details, probably very selectively. So it could be, in this case, it might be something like, partner asks, "Hey, where were you? What about the bacon?" And you just say, "Oh, I forgot. Something came up." Or you might mention, "Oh, I dropped by a friend's house and got kind of distracted," and omit the details of there was a whole party and shenanigans and things. Uh, Gaslighting is another form of lying. Gaslighting related to manipulation, emotional manipulation, intimidation, things like that. But here's where your partner might ask, like, "Hey, where were you? I thought you were going to bring home the bacon." And you respond with bluster. Be like, "Why are you trying to control me? And what's the big deal? And why are you always pestering me? And gosh, just leave me alone. And like, why couldn't you go get the bacon after all? You're the one who wanted it." And in that sense, you get the attention off of you. You try to make it the other person's problem. You question their reality, and get them to question their own reality, and just Uh, like if you come away from an interaction with a sense of like, I don't know just what happened. Like I don't even really have a sense of like what what's going on? Like what's real anymore? Like if that's your sense coming away from a conversation, you might have just been gaslit just a little bit, or maybe a lot. So that's something to be aware of. It's a thing that people do. Um, Denial is another form of deception, and this can go both ways. It can be the kind of the classic, like, "I don't have a problem," and denying something to someone else. But there's also there's a very internal dynamic to this also. Partner asks, "Hey, where were you? I thought you were gonna pick up eggs and bacon." And you can be like, "It's not that big of a deal. I mean, yeah, I forgot. I got home late. It's not really that important." Or like, I could. It doesn't matter. Um, or what I might tell myself going into it if I'm thinking like I'm not going to go to the store, I'm going to go to this party instead, and can be like, well, I can get away with it, or I deserve this, or and, it's been a long hard day, and I really ought to have this. I really ought to have this for myself, and in some way, just like convincing yourself that this untruth is a truth. My partner won't really care if I do this thing. So yeah, there's denial is very much like an internally deceptive thing. Can be related to like justification, rationalization, minimization. Those are some classic what we call cognitive distortions, or we might call them automatic negative thoughts or thinking errors. And it's basically here's statements you tell yourself to make your actions okay. um, like I kind of within the cluster of denial, like it's not that big of a deal. No one will know. I kind of deserve this. Um, it's not really. It's not like an orgy party. It's just like a drinking party, or it's Friday night. Like everybody does these things. So it's these things you tell yourself to make it okay, even when you know it's not. Um, is a thing. How many other ways are there to lie? So there's exaggeration. Um, Exaggeration, embellishing. That can be this like kind of like grandiosity approach to it. In this case, in a fixed scenario, could look something like um, partner asks, "Hey, where were you? I thought you were gonna get eggs and bacon." And you can be like, "Well, like my friend called, and he was doing this thing, and he really needed my help, and he was kind of unsure if anyone would show up, and he was kind of lonely, and he really needed my help. And then this thing happened, and there was just this person just like like jumped on me, and I couldn't get her off of me or something. You kind of just you blow up the situation into something that it was not really at all, and make it sound much bigger, much more dangerous, much more intense than it actually was, um, to get the emphasis off of was actually going on for you. What was actually going on for you was like, I wanted to go. It was like a really low key party, and I wasn't supposed to be there, but I really wanted to go. Flood of information. It's another way to practice deception, and it'll be something like, partner asks, "Hey, where were you? I thought you were going to come home with eggs and bacon, and you didn't come home until really late, and there's no eggs and no bacon." And you can be like, "Well, so so all day was like super stressful, and I had all of these like work things to take care of, and like me and my boss said this thing, and my coworker said this thing, and then when I was getting on the road to go home, and then like traffic was really bad, and then there was this roadwork thing, and then there was this other thing that I saw in the sky, and I got this call from my friend, and he was saying he needed me to come over, and so I came over for a little bit, and then he was like, can you help me do this thing like with like the lawnmower, and then they're making burgers, and then they're like, hey, you need to do this other thing and this other thing and this other thing, and blah 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 blah. And someone like cracked open a bottle of wine at this point, and then Sally showed up for a little bit, blah 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 blah. But in that sense, you just you know maybe you get a sense for just like anxious. So that's kind of the idea. It's like if I want to hide something, I might give you so much information around that thing that you forget what you were actually asking about, or the thing that I maybe like drop like a tiny hint of like truth in there, but it's completely blown over by all of this other stuff. Or it can be a way of saying, well, I'm accounting for so much time and activity, that must be everything that happened, right? Is what I might hope that you're saying. But really, it but I'm leaving out in actual detail. Um, Partial truths, or we could say like the white lies, or like the fibs, or um, things like that. It's a way of saying a little bit, but not the full thing. Like you might say, okay, so I did go to the party, but not mentioning that there was drinking, or not mentioning that this former love interest was there, or maybe mentioning, okay, so we did quick kiss a little bit, but not mentioning actually you kissed for a long time and you really liked it. Um, but you kind of get the idea. There's a way of like, well, I'll tell you a little bit, but not the full thing, and uh, or I might say, here's a little bit of like the action, but I'm not going to say anything about what my actual motivation intention was, which would actually be like the real part that needs attention. Um, uh, Passive deception or withholding, kind of related to hiding and secrecy. Here's where then this would be a case where like you're supposed to come home with the eggs and bacon, you don't, and for whatever reason, maybe your partner doesn't notice or doesn't pick up on that, or doesn't ask, or because they don't specifically say, "Hey, did you go to this party and have a drink and make out with so and so?" You just don't say it, and it's these occasions where that this information would be meaningful to this person that you care about, but you opt to withhold it and not bring it up. And in that sense, you've created a secret for yourself, and you're holding that and you're hiding that, and you're going to pay for that. It's going to be this burden for you. It's going to be this guilt. It's going to be the shame. Behaviorally, you might be getting away with it for a while because nobody knew, nobody's asking, um, but you've introduced this element of secrecy into the relationship. So that's a kind of lying, the kind where you don't proactively say the truth that needs to be said. So there is that. Um, let's see. They're related to partial truths. You can think any form of like misdirection, or misemphasis, or you can spin a story a lot of different ways to where you say, oh yeah, so there is this party, um and I was really enjoying connecting with my friend who invited me, and like he had me help cook, and oh, I donated our bacon to the party, or something, and just like you zero in on one thing that you want to emphasize, that's not actually the thing. You're saying of this like, oh, I went over to go do my friend a favor, when really you went because you were hoping to see this person, or have this drink, or just like be in the party zone. Um, Another variant could be the hyper specificity. And it's again kind of in the genre of I'm crafting a narrative, and I'm going to say something that's like so super specific that just misses the thing. Uh, like what would that look like in this scenario? I didn't come home with the eggs and bacon because I needed to make a stop, and I noticed that there were drugs going on at the party, and I did not do the drugs. I passed up the drugs. And you put the focus on there's a specific thing that was going on that you didn't do. Never mind. Well, I wasn't supposed to drink either, and I did some of that. And again, the kind of withholding that withholding all of the story about making out with somebody. So hyper specificity, you pick the detail that you want a lot of the attention to go to, that isn't actually the detail that matters, and that becomes your lie. So there, another form of this could come up. We called it this idea like empty promises, or grandiosity. This idea of uh, this would be somebody's like, hey, are you almost done with that work project that I asked you to do? And like, maybe you haven't started it, but you're like, yeah, I'm almost done. I'm almost done, as you're starting it right now. There can be this sense of, again, kind of just like misrepresenting yourself, or or if there's this idea of, somebody asks you, will you do this thing for me? And you say, sure, I want to do that. I'm going to do that. It'll be great. I'll do it well. It'll be fun. You kind of know there's a high probability I won't follow through. But I inflate my image of myself in my mind to think that I will actually follow through with it. It's partially lying to the other person. It's partially lying to your own self. There's some denial going on there, but we could call that a form of grandiosity, or again, just kind of like exaggerating to yourself. All that to say, so here's a bunch of examples, a bunch of terms that some of which I kind of made up, some of which are kind of real terms. But the idea is that there's a lot of ways to hide. There's a lot of ways to hide the truth. There's a lot of ways to obscure the truth. We could talk about, lies of omission, lies of commission, white lies, exaggerations, or we could just talk about like deception in general. And the key is to remember that um, we can zero in on here's a specific scenario in which I did this or that. But there's this instinctive intent. Like for some people, lying becomes a craft and it becomes a sport almost. For others, it's very much a survival skill. It's for whatever reason we believe I cannot be fully open about myself or this or that thing because it's not safe to do so. And in some cases that's true. And for a lot of us growing up in childhood, that was true. We had to hide things to keep ourselves safe. Some of us just had really difficult childhoods. So that's the thing. Um, and so deception then becomes part of our instinctive pattern. I'm going to say it's not who we naturally, authentically are. It's not the true essence of ourselves to be untruthful like this. These are parts, these are masks that we wear to hide ourselves. And so the healing process, the growth process, becomes learning to be honest, learning to truth tell, rather than omitting details to be thorough, rather than telling a blatantly untrue thing to tell the true thing, rather than exaggerating the truth to be really specific and precise about the truth. Rather than inflating yourself and trying to flatter yourself, to be really humble and be really honest, and to have a more remorseful, repentant, contrite heart that would say, I didn't I decide I really wanted to do what I wanted to do instead of getting the eggs and bacon. So I went to the party and then I thought I had better self-control than I did, but I didn't. And I had a drink. And it's true. It was only half a drink. So I'll give myself that. But then I did make out with this person that I wasn't supposed to. Um, and I know that was wrong. And there's that whole combination of being fully truthful, being fully honest about who you are, that allows the actions you do, they happen for a reason. They come out of a context. They come out of a wounded context, and that woundedness cannot really be healed until it can be seen and until it can be known. And so that becomes a process of recovery and of achieving integrity, is removing the mask slowly, carefully, and in the presence of a safe other, but gradually becoming more seen, becoming more known. And this becomes the way of salvation, the way of sobriety, the way of healing. And it's difficult. It's really difficult. It's really scary. And there are consequences to the actions that we do, and we do have to face those. And that's never pleasant. But this is also the way. If we want to change, if we want to be connected with people, if we want to have intimacy, true intimacy with people, if we want to have a congruency within ourselves, if we want to experience wholeness, if we want to be able to comfortably be present in ourselves, and ultimately, if we want to be able to, be able to perceive God in all things, then we need to be truthful people. And it's a lifestyle. It's this long-term pattern shift that we're aiming for, and it's difficult. There is help for it. You don't have to do this alone. Please don't do this alone. Find help, and just be patient with yourself. Also, be patient with people who might have lied to you and are trying. If they're really trying, that's a whole different conversation. But yes, this takes a long time. In any case, thank you for listening. If this sort of conversation is meaningful, helpful for you, then please check out the podcast page at patreon.com/outer circle. You can learn how to support the podcast and join our community that way. If you're interested in embarking on a recovery journey of some sort and you're in the Portland metropolitan area, look up newpatterncounseling.com, and there's information about how to reach our clinic. And we would be happy to talk to you, happy to help you walk through your process. And again, thank you so much for listening. And I will hopefully talk to you again very soon.